Hello, and welcome to Small Biz Catalyst. I am your host, Ayiset Abilogun. Join me as we explore ways that we as small business owners can pay ourselves a growing six-figure salary without pulling out our hair. Whether you're a small business owner or an economic development professional, this show is for you. Let's explore together. And if you listen to the end, I will share some grants that might be beneficial to your business. Hi, everyone. Today, I am super excited to introduce you to a very special guest, a woman who has touched several lives, who is a leader, and actually is sharing her wisdom right now. And so we are going to learn from a new book that she wrote. But before I go into all of that, of course, I want to tell you what today's episode is about. Today, I want to invite you as a listener to examine the unspoken pressures that women of color face in leadership and the inner resources that we can draw upon to thrive despite them. So through personal stories, Dr. Froswa Booker-Drew shares how grace, community, and grounded spiritual practices can be powerful tools for resilience. So whether you're a woman of color navigating your own leadership journey or someone who wants to be a better ally, mentor, or institutional change agent, you will walk away from today's episode with insights that you will be glad you joined us for. So without further ado, I want to welcome Dr. Froswa Booker-Drew. Welcome to the show.
What an amazing introduction. Thank you for having me and for all the great work that you're doing in community as well.
You're welcome. So some of our listeners may not be familiar with your work. Would you tell them a little bit about you so they know who you are? And I just want them to get to know you.
I'll do an abbreviated version just because of time. I have been working in the nonprofit and education space for over 30 years. And my journey has been one like most where you had an idea about what you were going to do very young, and through a series of events that I believe are divinely inspired, change the course of that, and you end up in a place that's even better than what you imagined. And so I've been very fortunate to work with a number of nonprofits, at a local grassroots level, to working with international nonprofits and supporting their work domestically. And my last role was serving as VP of Community Affairs at State Fair of Texas. I currently have my own business, which I've had for years. But for the last 3 years, I've been full-time providing consulting in a couple of areas. It's helping folks with, engagement strategies into their communities, and how do you connect to these different organizations and neighborhoods, and helping people think strategically about that. But what I discovered was a lot of folks had internal culture issues. And so helping people before they look at external community, how do you fix your internal community? And then it's morphed into doing a lot of leadership coaching and helping executives think about how they show up before they, deal with their teams and deal with community. What does it mean internally to make sure that you're showing up and walking in purpose? And so that's a glimpse of what I'm blessed to do every day.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And we're going to segue a little bit into the latest project that you just did. The book I got to learn about, for those of you who are curious, is Porch Wisdom, Navigating Leadership Pressures and Barriers as a Woman of Color. And when I started reading this book, I'm not done reading it, by the way, but I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for writing this.
I mean, I didn't hear that.
And one of the things that made me say that was last week, I recorded an episode on faith and business. And there was still a little part of me that was really scared to do that, just because I feel like culture tells us one thing about our faith, when it comes to us being in the workplace. I want you to share with our audience what is the title of this book, and what are the particular moments that sparks the vision for this book?
That's a really good question. The book title was really based on, I remember as a child going around elders and my grandparents, and they have front porches, something that we really don't have now. And the front porch was this place of gathering. It was intergenerational sharing and connection, wisdom. And so I wanted to write a book where people figuratively had this front porch experience where you're learning from my experiences of being in the workplace and being in leadership for decades. But I also wanted to be able to use data and I wanted to use case studies of other women. But I hadn't seen much of a book for women of color on leadership that came from a faith lens. And I wanted to be able to help women of color that have a strong belief, and even if it's not, for you to be able to see yourself reflected in the workplace through the word. And so I didn't want to create something that was preachy, but I wanted to create something where people walked away and went, that's me. That's my story. And just like you said, it's been so refreshing to hear young women go, oh my goodness, you had me crying. I got one note where a young lady said, I cried because I saw myself in this. And that's what I wanted. And that's really the vision for the book is I wanted younger women to be able to know that you're seen and you're heard and that this is not a journey that you have to walk by yourself. The front porch is available to you. I wanted older women to also know that, hey, we're not crazy, that these experiences shape who we are and to be able to give language to what we've gone through. And for allies, which has been interesting, is a lot of allies reading the book going, Froswa resonated with me. There are things in this that have helped me to be a better ally, but it's helped me think about my own journey and what are the pieces of wisdom that I've been given and how do I share that with younger women. So, I'm hoping that folks will take this book and feel like I matter, I'm heard, I'm seen, that they're given tools to be able to, endure the challenges that they face. But I'm also hoping that for allies, they walk away and in a time of so much division, they walk away feeling like I too am a part of creating change, that this doesn't just rest with folks who are being impacted and affected. All of us have a part to play in creating the change we want to see.
And you go beyond your own wisdom. You actually share wisdom from God in this book. And that was when I was like, wait a minute.
Yes.
I
Yes.
was like, this is good. And then I mean, the way you end each chapter, you're helping us reflect. You're not just reading a fiction or someone's story. You're reflecting, you're interacting. And that was what I loved about the book. And I typed an email to you. Thank you for writing this. That's where that came from.
Amen. I love it. Yeah, I want people to reflect because one of the things I find that most leaders don't do is they're always doing something, but they don't create spaces for reflection. So, what does it mean for you to use your faith as a lens to reflect through and see how God is working through your own story? That the stories of these women that I mentioned in the book, like Leah and Hagar, I want you to see your story too and your journey and theirs. And so, it's this ongoing story that gets to evolve and we're a part of it. And that's what I'm hoping people are able to go, oh, it's not her just telling me about her story and journey and giving me all this data. I get a chance to own my own narrative and see how God is working through my story too to do something important and impactful.
I loved it. I loved it. And I found out that it was also available on Spotify. I didn't know that. I thought it was just paperback. So for those of you who are audio listeners like me, and I should have asked, I didn't.
Yeah, it's on Audible and Apple and all kinds of other, locations. But the Jania Edwards, who did the voicing for it, is renowned. And it was an honor to be able to have this award-winning artist do the book. And one of my friends, she said, I bought the book, I've read it twice, and I listened to the audio. And I was like, thank you for being such an advocate and she voted for her staff. I was like, oh my God, and she's an ally. And it's just been so cool that people have access in all these different formats to enjoy the book. So thank you for supporting it and being an advocate for it too.
I'm an audio listener, but I didn't know that it was available in audio until yesterday. I was like, oh gosh, I would have read it. I would have finished reading it if I had done the audio first.
You'll get through it.
It's the first book I've read in a long time in the format that I'm reading. So you see where that comes from. So you've worked in philanthropy, in nonprofits, and higher education. Are there some common mistakes institutions make when trying to support BIPOC leaders. And for those of you who don't know BIPOC is, because I just learned that word last year, it means Black, Indigenous people of color. So it's just a new term to group everyone together. So call it Black and Brown, so whatever is more comfortable for you. But yeah, BIPOC is very long words put into one short acronym and it works. So what are some mistakes that you've seen in institutions when trying to support BIPOC leaders?
They assume that they're the ones to run the DEI work. And that's always fascinating to me that companies assume that because a person is a person of color, that they are equipped to lead a DEI strategy and not think about all the other talents and giftings that a person has. Communities of color are not monolithic. And to assume that people have this knowledge of everyone that's a part of their community and can actually teach it and has not had that experience can sometimes be challenging, I think. And I don't think it's fair to put people in positions because of their skin color that you go, oh, they should be the automatic hire for this role. And that's not fair. I've seen so many people be thrust into those kinds of positions, and companies do that often. And instead of being able to allow people opportunity to opt in if they want to do it and have the background to be able to do it. So that's one. I think the other mistake that a lot of companies make is they do not allow people the space to be themselves. And I think so often we want people to fit into this model of culture. And I think we miss out on the opportunities to experience the totality of what people bring. We all have blind spots. And if we only hire people that are just like us, we miss out on opportunities. And thinking that you get one of a group is going to help you be able to understand that community is crazy. You're also bringing a person into a space that may not be very helpful, but could be very harmful. And I find a lot of companies see it as, let's check a box to bring someone in and not necessarily think about, is this a culture that is going to allow us to get the best out of this person? Or is this going to be a culture that's harmful because we've designed it with us in mind and not designed it with everyone in mind, and making sure that people feel like they belong and they have a voice and that, again, they matter. And so there is a lot more. We could do a whole series on what companies should and should not do as it relates to bringing in people of color, organizational culture. It's a lot, but I think that it says there's work to be done.
I know you do consulting with leaders. Is that an area that you also consult on?
Oh, yes. I've had to, because I find that a lot of folks want to go into communities and want to help with, being able to do their philanthropy, but they have some organizational stuff around how they believe about or what they believe about communities. So yes, I end up doing a lot in helping organizations break down some of the ways that they think and examining the cultures that they've created. Because sometimes you have a culture that you may want to bring people in, but it's quite toxic for the folks who are working there with you already. So helping people unpack that and beginning to think about things like, how do they build social capital internally? That's what I do a lot of, helping companies and organizations.
Hello, listener. If you're just joining us, this is Small Biz Catalyst. And I'd like to introduce you to something happening very soon. It's the Texas Entrepreneur Ecosystem Summit. It is the virtual summit, and it's happening on August 27th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central Time. This summit is all about helping entrepreneurs across Texas grow stronger and more resilient. We've got some great speakers lined up for you, like Ken Malcolmson, who is the president and CEO of the North Dallas Chamber of Commerce, Andy Stoll, the CEO of eShip Alliance, and Akeem Shannon, an investor who you might recognize from Shark Tank. At this summit, we'll be looking into real solutions for real problems entrepreneurs face every day. Things like access to funding, capacity support, workforce solution, and finding the right networks. Great news! This summit is totally free to you. You can join from anywhere, and you should definitely be in that virtual room where a lot will be happening. If you're building something or helping others build something, this is the summit for you. We have our resource partners who will be there, ready and willing to meet you. And we'll have economic development professionals who will be there to share all that's happening in their communities with you. Head over to texasecosystem.org/events to register. I'll see you there. And now, back to the show. So what piece of front porch wisdom has stayed with you through the toughest leadership session or season?
That's a very good question. Wow, the piece of wisdom that has stayed with me is that all money is not good money. I think sometimes when you're in business, it's very easy to think that, oh, I got to take this job or I got to take this contract. And I've learned that sometimes opportunities will cost more than they're worth. And so you can take something. I remember taking a client years ago, and what I got paid was crumbs because of all the emotional labor and all of the demands and the toxicity that this organization had. It cost me my peace. And I've learned that when opportunities cost peace, they're not worth it. And so you can look at a dollar amount and go, oh, this will be great. When the client demands more than what the contract says,
Yes.
you have to question, is that a place, and they don't value what you bring. You have to question, is that money really worth it? And quite often it's not.
I love that. I'm taking notes. I'm like, ooh, opportunities can cost more than they're worth. That is so true when you're in consulting, because sometimes you get a big contract and you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then the letters, they're not even the tiny letters. The tiny letters that never made it to the documents. And then it wants to keep you up at night.
Been there, and you have to be able to say, I'm not willing to do that. I think sometimes the mistake many of us make too is we're so eager for the opportunity that we don't interview the people just as they're interviewing us. And I think we have to be able to ask the right questions about culture and expectations and unwritten rules that you have. And, those things are just as important. And as consultants, and even as you're applying for a job, I think it's too easy to just go, wow, I love this title. I've never done this before. I've never made this much money. And we don't count the cost. The Bible tells us, even with discipleship, and I take it even further, I think everything in life, we have to count the cost. And some things cost a whole lot more than they're worth.
Yeah, that is so true. Count the costs. I love that. So I was going to ask how listeners can connect with you, and I will. But is there a story you would want to leave us with from this book?
I talk about in the book 2 characters that I mentioned, Leah and Hagar. And I think we've looked at these women as being, they're not that important. And I don't think we see our stories through both of these women. When you look at a Hagar, here is a woman who came from Egyptian royalty, and yet she was brought into an environment where she didn't have autonomy over her body. She was othered, and yet God still saw her and met her at the well. And I think for me, it's helping people understand that even in the most difficult season, God sees us and he will meet us where we are. And God birthed a nation through her in spite of the difficulties that she went through. So everything has purpose, that God doesn't waste anything that we go through. And then I look at Aaliyah, who was, dismissed by her father. Her husband didn't care for us. And we always focus on her sister. But I don't think we pay attention to, in both of those stories, the dynamics with women. With Hagar, she was having problems with Sarah, and Sarah was a part of her oppression. And I think those are some things that we have to unpack as women in the workplace as to how are we helping other women and not creating more harm. And you see in that story, there's harm created. When you look at Leah and her sister Rebecca, you see the harm of them fighting over a man. And in the beginning, Leah, like many of us in the workplace, want to be seen and we want recognition. And so we're doing all these things for that. And finally, she gets to a place that, God, I'm doing this for you. And you see the names of her children begin to change. And I think we have to be careful what we center. Because so often we can center the job or the man or whatever. And we make that the focus and not focus on God. It's what you want. And even though I've been dismissed and, mistreated, not that that's fair and acceptable, but it's knowing that when we center God, He works things out. And that's what both of those stories have done for me as lessons in my own journey.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So, how can our listeners support your work or connect with you or learn from you?
They can go for the book, it's on Amazon. So please continue to support that. InterVarsity Press has been amazing as a publisher. It's on their website. You can actually download a chapter from the website of InterVarsity Press to get a glimpse of the book. But to connect to me, my website is Dr. Froswa Booker. And all they have to do is just send a note on the website and I answer.
Oh, that is so easy. We always leave every episode with one question for our guests. And that's, what advice do you have for today's entrepreneur?
Build community. I think so often we do this work in isolation and we don't create our own safety nets. We're always focusing on creating clients and generating business, but business is about relationships. And so how do you make sure that you're getting mentors, that you have sponsors that are saying your name in rooms that you're not in? We need to get wisdom. Even for me, I have people that are my personal board of directors. And I think so often we'll do that for organizations, but we don't do it for ourselves. And so I would encourage, entrepreneurs, build your own personal board of directors where people hold you accountable and they speak wisdom into your life. You need those mentors. You need people who will say your name in rooms that you're not in. That has been my journey. Is God has blessed me with people who saw things in me I couldn't see in myself and spoke life into me, but they also spoke my name. And so build a community that can help support you grow.
That is awesome. I love that. I've always had mentors, and we had an event in March, and a lady for the first time shared, hey, don't just have mentors, have sponsors. And it was like light bulb went on for me. I was like, what? Say that again? No, you don't have to tell me twice.
Yes, you got to have people because there are rooms that we're not in. There are rooms that we don't even know exist. I mean, I'm discovering groups and I'm like, I didn't know that's been around. It's been around 20, 30 years. And it's been because of other people's advocacy. But this is the thing. It's reciprocal. We can't just expect that. We have to do it. I believe our lives are a reflection of what we put out there. So if we're generous and kind and we're opening doors for others, I believe God sees that and He creates people to be a part of our path to do that for us. So just as you want it, do it for others.
That's true. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And guys, listeners, I just want to share this with you. Some of the things I've learned from today. Have your personal board. I've never thought about that. I've always had an advisory board for my organization, a board of directors for our nonprofit, but a personal advisory board, and I immediately can see the value. So that's one of the things I'm going to invest in right now, is getting myself a personal board of directors. So I have a personal board of directors. Remember, all money is not good money. Opportunities can cost you more. So evaluate. Yes. And even if you feel unseen, know that there's a God who sees you. And as you told the story of Leah, I hope I'm not telling this wrong. I believe she gave birth to Judah. And Judah is where the lineage of David comes from, and the line of Jesus.
Yes.
The unseen wife, the unseen woman.
Yes. God, don't use it.
Don't discount where you are, because you just never know how your stories can impact other people's lives and give, So go look for somebody you're going to sponsor.
Yes.
As you look for a sponsor for yourself. Thank you so much for being on here. This has been I'm so honored, honestly, that you're here. And I'm so glad to hear from you directly about this book and hear some of your wisdom. And I can't wait to read all of it.
And I can't wait for us to get back together and we talk about what you got from the book, because that means a lot to me. I want it to be a blessing. So thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
You are welcome. And now for the grant section. The first grant is Roger I. and Ruth B. MacFarlane Foundation. The maximum grant amount is $250,000 and there is no deadline. You can find out more about this grant at www.macfarlane.org. MacFarlane Foundation. That's MacFarlane Foundation.org/grant-making. That's MacFarlaneFoundation.org/grant-making. Their grant is actually divided into two phases, with phase 1 ranging from $10,000 to $75,000 and category 2 grants ranging from $200,000 to $250,000. The next grant is the King Ranch Family Trust. This grant, the deadline is April 1st, 2026, and the maximum grant amount is $45,000. For more information on this grant, you can go to krft.org or email krft1944@gmail.com. Maximum amount is $45,000. Deadline is April 1st, 2026.